Craig, we are now recording. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's that time again. Welcome back to my podcast, The Foyne Jones Show. It's season 8, and we are talking about the builders merchant industry from the ground up. And today in the studio, I'm joined by Craig Fraser. Craig's got an interesting story, and he's going to take you through where it began, where it got to, and almost how it evolved and started again into where he is in the here and now. So, Craig, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Pete.
We've been sharing a bit of football banter as well before we hit record, haven't we?
We have been indeed. Yeah.
We have, and there will be, for regular listeners to the show, we try and bring some football in. We're recording this just after the international break. It'll be played in a few weeks' time, so you'll probably laugh at our predictions when they didn't go so well. Like in the summer when all the guests in the studio 4 days before the Euro final said, "Yeah, it's coming home. Like, we're going to do it this time." We were proved otherwise. But we will talk about your love of Arsenal. We'll talk about your love of Fulham, because all Arsenal fans love Fulham now because they're becoming a mini Arsenal. But Craig, for the listeners, mate, tell us who you are and what you're doing at the moment, mate. Let's get to know you from the ground up.
Yeah, so my name's Craig Fraser, and I am one of the owner-directors of Forge Timber and Building Supplies. Been in the industry now nearly 20 years, so coming up to my 20th year, which seems to have flown by. And yeah, merchant pretty much born and bred.
Merchant, born and bred. What part of the world are you from the uneducated, if you don't know?
Yeah, so I work from Buckingham, based in Fringford near Oxfordshire, and always been based around this part of the world.
Lovely part of the world, home counties, mate. You've got it all going on, and I guess it's affectionately North London for you and the family, isn't it? So you've got the Arsenal element. But let's focus on the merchanting career, because you spoke about 20 years longevity in an industry, and I always talk about this. You know, my first job on my granddad's market stall, my first real job in a builder's merchant. And that's where it all begun for me. And that was in the yard at Travis Perkins in Fulham. Where did it start for you, Craig? How did merchanting begin for you?
Yeah, so I am your archetypal story of falling into it completely by accident. My first job, I was an apprentice building horse boxes for a living, and I absolutely hated it. And my girlfriend at the time, I was telling her dad about it, and I think he just got sick of listening to me moan. And he said one day, when I've been playing golf with a guy who owns a plumber's merchant, would you like to go? And he said he's got a job going, and would you like to go and do that? So went, and the next thing I know, I'm a van driver for a plumber's merchant. But the story I love to tell about it is, on my first day, I turned up, and Carl Morgan, who was my manager at PTS, I sat there in trousers and a shirt, and he's looking at me thinking, and he said, have you got a change of clothes with you? And I was like, no. And he was like, do you know what you've got yourself into? And I was like, not really. So he sent me home to change, and that was the start of what has been 20 years so far, and many more years to come.
And do you know what's so fantastic, Carl? Just making some notes. I've given myself all this sight. I've got all these different things I'm thinking about. And just from what you said there, right? So you kept moaning. So you moaned yourself into the industry. That's
Absolutely.
That's a job searching tip we've not shared with our candidates and people we're working with. Just keep moaning, and something may happen. And so the horse boxes just weren't doing it for you, mate.
Yeah, it was one of those where I've always been extremely ambitious, and I'm your typical guy, like, didn't really perform well at school because I was interested in football and other things going on. And I remember coming away from school, and my dad always said to me, you got two choices here, mate. You can either crack on, and you're going to have to work blooming hard to get ahead. And so being ambitious, working in the horse box building industry, there's not really a lot of progression. It's quite a menial and hands-on job. And for me, I needed something that was going to fulfill that necessity to want to get on with prospects. I think the joy of this industry is that, even looking back 20 years ago, I didn't realise what prospects there were. And my word, this is an industry that just keeps rewarding and rewarding if you put more and more in.
Yeah, it does, mate. I remember when I picked the card up from the job centre, and I said, "What's that?" And they said, "That one's gone." I went, "Oh, right, okay." So I said, "What about that one?" They said, "Oh, that's still available, but go down there." It's near Chelsea Harbour. I said, "All right, go down there," and boom, 4 hours a day to sales director. So that was and it does have that, but that 20 years longevity, the social media world, it went off the Richter scale a few weeks ago, and because it celebrated the Nike CEO's journey, from intern to the boardroom, and everyone's putting their journeys up. And what we're doing this series is we're kind of walking through the steps of that career, because if you go back to yourself in the school playground, or me in the school playground, and we go, right, we can do this, we do that, you're not necessarily thinking about what it could lead to, and it has led to amazing things. Now our challenge is the generations coming through are tech savvy, they're AI savvy, they're talking about how they can do searches and prompts and use automation to be a better version of them. There's also the growing population of digital nomads, which kind of exploded after the pandemic, where I'm going to work in Lisbon, I'm going to work in Barcelona, I'm going to go and work in Warsaw, and you're like, okay, how can you do that? Well, I can work from home, I can work from anywhere. We've got some challenges with our industry competing with that, but I would love, Craig, to just walk through your journey, your merchanting journey with you, because then that really leads us perfectly to where you are right now. So first role, they sent you home to get changed. You got changed, you come back, and what was you doing in the first role, mate? Let's go through this.
So first role, van driver. So I was delivering boilers and radiators in and around Kettering in Corby in Northamptonshire. Absolutely loved it. It was my first interaction with customers day to day, seeing people and chatting to them and getting to know them, and realizing that the people in our industry, 99% of them are friendly and want to get to know you and want to know more about you. And that was the first job I did for, that would be nearly a year and a half. And I had a great manager at the time, Carl, who wanted to see me do well. And he put me into a sort of an internal sales warehousey role. And then my next step, which really sort of took me onwards to become, so I became a sales rep after a couple of years with the business, came completely fortuitously. So Carl was going on holiday and we had a golf day to organise. So me and the assistant manager, a guy called Matt Smith, were left with it. And I had to phone the sales director to invite him. So a guy called John Vaughan, and I phoned him up and left a voicemail for him. And when we went to the golf day, my area manager, Karen Freeman, the lady was called, pulled me to one side and said, "We want to offer you the rep's job. Me and John were sat in the car listening to your voicemail. We've been looking for a rep," and we just turned to each other and went, "We found him," and that was it. And that's what that was. And then from there, I spent 6 months doing that, and a branch manager's role came up in Banbury in Oxfordshire, and I went for that, and I was successful in doing that. And that actually led to sort of the first failure in the career, because I'd had this sort of 3 years of amazing progression, and actually I was quite precocious, and I think I was a bit, I know everything, and I've got this nailed down. And the truth was, I could have done more with closing this and opening these. And so, I actually, that was a job I ended up leaving the business, and me agreed that I needed to leave it. And that was the sort of first setback, if you like. So I went on the road for a few years. Working for a company called Vortis, selling HVAC products, and it's a tough gig out there on your own. Sometimes I've got a lot of admiration for those external sales reps, and it's something I've even taken forward with me in my career. I've always got time for those guys who are prepared to put themselves out there and walk through a door and go, "Look, this is who I'm from. We've not met before, or we don't deal with each other. Can we have a chat?" We've always got time for that. So spent 2.5 years doing that, and then joined Travis Perkins as a sales rep. So hired into Travis's, spent 2.5 years doing that, and became a manager with a gentleman called Tony Monkley. Took a chance on me as a branch manager in Leighton Buzzard. Done very well. Went to join one of their biggest branches in Northampton, their brick centre. And then when Tony moved to Build Base, followed him, and then done roles in Build Base as manager and regional manager. And then got what I class as, it was almost the final piece in the jigsaw, where I was taken on to be a managing director designate for Heavy Building Supplies, an independent based in the home counties, etc., and working with the owner, Mark Mulvey, and Shankar Patel of Lords. And it was 2 of the most phenomenal years I've ever had, from a networking perspective, from a learning how to run a business perspective. It was absolutely phenomenal, the things we got to do. And then that led to back end of last year, I came back from holiday, and with the climate as it was, Lords had decided to restructure. So at the start of December, I'm suddenly sat there having this great 20 years of career virtually unbroken, suddenly without a job, scratching my head going, what am I going to do?
Wow. And if we just take a moment to pause at that specific point, I, as a business owner, do a lot of support above and beyond my recruitment work, helping individuals, boys and girls, who for whatever reason are in that difficult situation. Being made redundant isn't the end. It can be the beginning of something really special. But trust me, you'd know this yourself, it can be equally terrifying. And not everyone is in a position where the payoff's enough money. They've got enough in the bank. They've got, and you can see people living week to week, salary to salary, and they're immediately under pressure. And we saw the dark side of that during the pandemic. That was very difficult. We overcome that. And then we did see some of the big hitters went. There was the waves and waves and waves. And when you look in and you feel and you work with people in that situation, resilience it's an easy word to say, but that's what we're going to explore now in almost like what Craig did next. And if I go back again, I've made some great notes, and I think this is really, really good when we're looking back reflectively. Certain things came out. You started as a van driver. You picked up the phone. You spoke to. So you started as a van driver. So you're face to face. You're customer facing. You're the first person they see. The last person you see. The ambassador role. So you're out there amongst it. You work with a great manager who encouraged you, motivated you. How many times you see people, the influencers, saying, "Pick a good boss, do the." But you're walking, talking example of that. And that's really important, Craig. Then, and I love this, mate, and we've got to go back to it. Your voicemail's got you a job.
Absolutely.
So you got a job through moaning, then you got your gig on the road by ringing me up and saying, "Hello, Peter, would you like to come to a golf day? My name's Craig." But you've done that professionally enough that someone's gone, well, if he left that messages another 25 times, he'd probably get 5 people out of the 20 to ring him again. Yeah. Boom. And that's the again, you go on to social and people saying, "Oh, did you pick the phone up? No, I sent an email. Did you pick the phone up? No, I sent a WhatsApp. Did you pick the phone up? No, I did." And you've got an example of it there. But then you spoke about something negative. You said that actually you were a bit precocious, I think was your word. So, yeah. And you hit that point where, yeah, it didn't work out, and perhaps it was. I think you said you had to close your mouth and open your ears. Perhaps.
Indeed. And that's something I look back on now, and I think if I was stood in the room with 22-year-old Craig Fraser watching that happening, I'd be cringing. And while at the time I thought I was maybe being quite clever, I would absolutely give that boy a clip round the ear and say, "You're in a room with some very experienced people. You can learn really quickly here if you listen a bit more." Definitely. Yeah.
And you talk. I look at me and I think about my career. Who's influenced me? I can pinpoint certain factors, certain life-changing events, and certain people that really helped me on that journey. And we wore the same, might have been a few years apart, but we wore the same strip, mate, because I was a sales rep with a green and gold for Travis. So I loved that gig, mate. South East London, South West London, I loved it. They were great days.
Absolutely. It was definitely, when I went back to Travis's as a rep, 2.5 years, 2.5 great years, just out on the road again. And I was home counties, Luton, Bedfordshire.
Big boy branch you were looking after as well, weren't you? That always helps, doesn't it?
Love it.
Now, my last gig as a rep before I got promoted and the manager team was Vauxhall. So it was like, here we go.
The monster.
Yeah. So that was in the glory days of, it's still a great business now, but that was for me at the time, that was wow. But you learn so much when you're out on the road, and you still got that now because you recognise it's a lonely job. You recognise there's challenges, don't you?
I do. My biggest piece of advice I always gave to people when I was a branch manager and there was assistant managers looking to become managers or salespeople was go and rep, go and get out on the road and rep, because that was the difference in generally when a rep gets hired as a manager, it's because there's distress somewhere. It's because we we need a sales guy to go and turn that branch around. And I've seen loads of managers go through development programs who've never been out on the road. So when it comes to picking up that phone or going out, it is a bit like, well, I've emailed them, well, I've dropped them a phone. It's pick up the phone to them and make them walk through that door. And it's that persistence over resistance. As long as you're persistently polite, people will give you the time of day. There's very few who will hang that phone up or whatever. And if they do, there's no problem. Just move on.
And it transcends, and it's transcended, and it's took you all the way, almost in your own words, to like the dream job, right? You got the dream job. And I went through this because I went 9 3/4 years at Travis. Still call people like Mark Tallon, Joe Green, our boss. I was texting Joe because of the hurricane. I was saying, "You're right out there, mate." And, like I haven't worked for these people I've had for Joe's 21 years, so I haven't worked for them for like 25, 26 years, but I still call them boss.
Yeah, exactly.
And that respect's there. So you've got yourself there. You're in an amazing position, MD designate, working with spectacularly successful people. Real successful professional people, loving every minute of it. Then you were put in a very difficult situation where the R word, and there's no point not talking about it. That's where we started. The R word is there. You've been able to create something special, and you've been able to lean on one of the aforementioned individuals in your run through there. Mm-hmm. You've built something very, very, very successful, or starting to become successful. I'd love to know about the story so far. So let's talk about what's happening now, Craig. Let's talk about now.
Yeah, fantastic. So, coming out the back of what happened, myself and a good friend of mine and now business partner, a gentleman called Tom Monkley, we've been talking like most things. 14 years ago, sat in a pub working for TP. We could do this. And it was that thing of starting to look at it. And 14 years ago, it was like, oh, it costs more than 100 quid. We're going to have some challenges with this. So coming out the back of that, Tom had gone into a role that he just wasn't settling into. And he was like, I think there's an opportunity here if we want to have a chat. And it was all the pieces fell together. So we set up what has become Forge Timber and Building Supplies in Buckingham. We found a site in incredibly fortuitous circumstances. And all the pieces just started to fall together. And it was that thing of, I'm not a big believer in fate, but sometimes my missus even said to me when what happened with me happened, she said, if you and Tom don't think that the earth's trying to tell you something, that now's the time, you're idiots. And she's right, we are idiots. So
my wife's a big listener of the show, and she's normally right 99.99999% of the time normally. So it is there, but it's that moment of truth, isn't it? It's stick or twist. It's what can I do now which is different. I look back at my career, and I did 9 3/4 years at Travis. I did just under 3 at Saint-Gobain and Jewson. And I was very young. I was 27 years old when they gave me the sales director's job for London. And I look back at that and go, yeah, wow, I did achieve that. And then I went through that conversation that you guys had in the pub, and what do you want to do, and can we do it, and shall we do it? And I think being a business owner changes a lot of things, and you do have some amazing times, but you've also got that fear factor of the uncertainty, the unknown, the people that you're employing, the dependencies on you, and it is a change. So to hear the story you've done to get Forge Timber Building Supplies up and running is fantastic. But tell us about some of the not so relevant stuff, but for me so important. Like, where's the name come from? Who designed the logo? Where's you say you fell into finding a location. Can we ask how that happened?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, so I'll start with
the name and logo. Start there.
So the name. There's 2 stories to the name, and the more boring story is that me and Tom were on the phone one day, and he simply went, "Why don't we call it Forge? Because you forge together materials and you forge together, relationships." And it was like, yeah, that works. But the story we prefer to tell is actually for Tom to try and get the final okay from his other half, who's called Gwen. He's got a young daughter called Erin too. So actually it stands for Gwen and Erin. So that's the story. We think it's got a better story to it.
I think it's got a much better story to it, mate. Story to it. So I'm now going to call you for Gwen and Erin Building Supplies forever.
It's great, and it works for us both. I've got my first child due at the end of the month, and actually that's what we're doing it all for. We're doing it for our futures and for our families, and but yeah, we really like that, and that's what we're building this merchant around. It is about relationships. It's about that, it's that independent feel to a business. Where when you're spending your money, who it's helping. It's helping Gwen and Erin. It's helping me and Tom. Yeah. So absolutely.
But it resonates, and there are some real success stories of independent merchants that are out there doing it, and people that have come from larger groups, and they've been bold enough and brave enough to go out there and start making it happen. So if we look a little bit more forensically, if we dive deeper into the for Gwen and Erin timber building supplies experience, what would I see there as a customer if I arrived today? What's the stock looking like? What's it? What are you offering to your customers?
Yeah, so we've gone for a full mix merchant. So we're almost like a miniature Travis Perkins, if you like. I think the thing you learn as a business owner, and this is the biggest thing, stepping away from when it's not your cash to when it is your cash. Those numbers on a piece of paper suddenly mean something. So when you're buying, £20,000 of underground plastic, you've got to hope you're flipping that stock around nice and quickly. And it's as funnily enough, I was having a conversation with a supplier last week who was saying, look, many business owners will be having this conversation right now. Suppliers where they're looking for a bit of work are going, we've got some great deals coming, and we're all turning around going, yeah, but I want to keep the cash in the bank as it goes. I need that money. So that's as an experience, we've really heavily invested in our IT. There's more to come from us. So we've got a customer portal that allows our customer to view their transactions, etc. We're working with our ERP provider to get live vehicle tracking, so people will be able to almost have the DPD experience with tracking, because that's their expectation now. So what we're trying to do,
people want that now. I get it. Steve Collins did a great presentation on it at one of the events he did. We get it from our McDonald's. We get it from you want it now. So I think it's not even wanting. I think it's just expected. I think that's the word you use. We just expect to know where it is.
Exactly that. And that's the thing for us as an independent. It's what differentiates us from the nationals who are either privately owned, so the likes of TP, FTSE, or those now the private equity monsters that are out there, the MKMs, the Jewsons, the Grant and Stones, the IBMGs, these big beasts who have got essentially unlimited capital on tap. What can we do to differentiate ourselves? It's never going to be pricing. The greatest example I always give to people is once you hit price, you're like an airline. Like when we fly, for those that are like myself and have to fly economy when we fly, we pick the cheapest flight, because the truth is, if we're flying short haul, we don't get a meal, we don't get a TV, we get on a tin can that gets us to our destination. That's all we care about. But people will pay 20 times that value to fly first class. And they get to the same airport. They fly from the same place. They arrive at the same place. They go on the same tin can. The difference is the experience in between. And that's what we've got to focus on. While these big private equity companies are focusing on growth, ours is about experience. How do we drive that experience to make the customer want to come back and back? And I think, it's the personalities like yourself. I'm sure you'll use this analogy during your time as sales director. You're the pub landlord. Yeah, every time that person comes in, it's you make them feel welcome. You know what they do. You know what they're up to that weekend. You engage with them, and that's what creates that experience. And our challenge will be, we're ambitious to grow it, is how do we engender that to increase with all of our branches.
It's interesting that as well, because that about the personality, and you see the way the modern world is now. So when I repped, genuinely, mobile phones were just coming out. So when I first went out, it was phone card.
Yeah.
Genuinely, I was doing sales pitches with a phone card, and then you get your mobile to flip phone, and everything. But I look at communication and what I had to go through to get hold of a customer and get hold of a punter and find out the buyer's name and get the appointment and all of that. And I think now, wow, this is amazing. So I've got, I invest a lot of time into my social media, into LinkedIn. I take it very seriously. I enjoy it. I have fun, but I invest time. And I look at it as, for me, it's a way to show that pub landlord personality, or show your passion. I give a shit, and I will swear, I give a shit about men's mental health, so I'm going to talk about it. All right. And I'm not going to be scared of it. I'm going to talk about it. And I'm going to say, look, we go through some tough phases. Let's use this platform positively. But what I always say to anyone is, if I come and see you in your branch, or me and you went on site together, or we went down a pub, wherever we went, what I would say there is no different to what I would say here. So I get complete consistency on me. Board meetings I've been over the years, we've spent more time talking about football, my children, what was on the telly, what we're doing at the weekend. Then you cut down to the important part and you deliver it because there's chemistry and there's camaraderie and people are really wanting to be the best they can. So where are you going next? You spoke about multi-sites, you spoke about what it is. I want to end the first half of the show talking about you've turned a negative situation into an amazing positive. So what's next on the radar? What should we all be looking out for, Craig?
Yeah, I think for us, it's been really funny sitting down with the suppliers when we set this business up. And of course, they're talking to someone who's now, trying to get them to give them credit and give them accounts. But when we sat down with them all, we said, this might sound ridiculous because we don't have a site yet. Obviously, we do now, and we're open. But we said year one is survive, but we do want multi-branch. We would like to be a regional independent player, and hopefully we can do well enough that comes in the next 3 to 5 years. If that's 10, 15 years, it is. I think for all that MKM has now become, we really admire what they did, and the way they grew in offering almost that investment as a franchise opportunity. I find it head scratching. Nobody's copied it yet, and I think the opportunity is there to do it in years to come with the new generation. You're inspiring with your podcast. Actually, these people who are coming through the ranks and the people who listen to this today, the Craig Fraser of today who's in the van listening to your podcast, I want him in 10 years to be running my next branch somewhere else because he's the star of the future.
And that, mate, is where I pin everything on because I see great work being done by different organisations. I see great people standing up and saying we want to support our industry. What I want to see more of is people telling their stories and actually being a bit bold enough, like you was earlier, to say I needed to shut up and listen. Because I remember times when I joined Jewson from Travis, got very frustrated at Jewson because nothing happened. I'm like, why is it taking so long? Why does this take so long? And then when I realised it was different processes, and I just had to be more conservative with my expectation, I managed to make the system work for me. But in the end, it was like it was so simple. But if I look back at the first few months, every day I had a headache, and I'm like, but I'm giving myself this headache because I'm trying to achieve what can't be achieved, and that is the younger version of me. So me, and I'm 50 in February, so I'll be turning 50, and I look back and I think, well, I didn't know what a builder's merchant was when I was just turning 18, and I learned what one was when I was 18, and I've spent all that time working within them, proud to recruit for them. The industry is about the people, Craig. You've been a brilliant guest. Have you enjoyed the first half of the podcast, mate?
Yeah, it's been fantastic, and it's great to be a guest on it.
It's great to have you on. So when we come back after the break, we are going to jump away from builders merchanting to talk about football, because we can't not have a Foyne Jones show without some football banter. So we're going to talk about football, and then we're going to dive back into inspiring the next generation, because I want to actually understand that 22-year-old Craig Fraser in the van who got sent home to get changed. I want to actually dive deeper and say, what should we be saying to them, and what can they be doing to help themselves? And we're inspiring the next generation. So we'll see you after the break. All right, Craig?
Cheers, Pete.
When it comes to bricks, there's only one company to speak with. ET Clay have something for every brick project. With over 400 products across our 2 depots, we are the builder's merchant, brick merchant.
Welcome back to the second half of the Foyne Jones show. This season, season 8, we are talking from the ground up. Craig Fraser's in the studio. He's told us the story behind for Gwen and Erin Timber and Building Supplies. Falls Timber and Building Supplies, turning a negative into amazing positive. What I want to do is talk about your love of football, and in particular the fact that you are a Gooner. Charlie Hula, we've got another Gooner in the studio. What do you think about that? So, Craig, where did it begin for you at Arsenal, mate? Why are you an Arsenal fan?
Yeah, I think it was. I remember being very young. I'd be about 6-7 years old, and I was in the playground with two guys, Ned and Andrew Allen, their names were. And I remember one day I was like, I don't know who to support, and they were big Arsenal fans, and they turned around to me and they went, "You support Arsenal, and that's it." And that's how it all started. So I remember.
So it's boys in the playground rather than like your old man or your uncle. Or...
Yeah, no. So my dad wasn't a massive football fan, albeit, bless him, he always checks in with me about it and he keeps an eye on it now. But it was boys in the playground, and it was. I think I'd have been about 8, because I always remember the first game I saw on TV of Arsenal supporting them was the 1994 Cup Winners' Cup final when Naeem lobbed Seaman, and that is my enduring memory.
Let's do it, David Seaman.
It's my enduring memory, and I should have known I had a lifetime of disappointment coming up.
Yeah.
So
that was the chant, Naeem from the halfway line. That's what the David Seaman. I don't know why I'm singing it like we're a part of it. Fulham was still in Division 4 then. It was just something I saw on the news, on the telly.
But and then I remember, first game going to see Arsenal play at Wembley when we used to play the Champions League game there, and that was Arsenal-Fiorentina when Batistuta scored that wonder goal, and it's been the last few years have been fantastic after many sort of tough years, we are running them close, and we sound like those Liverpool fans, as in we're running them close, but it's a great time to be an Arsenal fan and watch what's happening at the club.
It must be. I look at Arsenal as one of the big clubs. I always have done. So when Fulham eventually arrived in the Premier League, being able to go to Highbury and watch Fulham play at Highbury. And I remember the game. It was like November time. It was a 0-0 draw, right, on a Sunday afternoon. But for me, that was I can't believe this. Like, we haven't even got battered. We've actually got away with a point. Often they battered us on that journey. I think Thierry Henry scored 5 against us once at Craven Cottage, or 4 or 5. And I remember we had an old Arsenal player, Maurice Volts. And he was playing right back, and he was playing right back. And at one stage, he had Henry, Perez, Lundberg, and Ashley Cole running at him because Thomas Rosiński didn't track back, and he was going like, "What do you want me to do?" And that was when that was the Invincibles, and that era. So now you're kind of looking at perhaps Arsenal are getting ready. They've got to hold their nerve, haven't they? Those really big title winning moments now, isn't it?
And it's margins these days. You look at last season, it ended up being a point, and these are like the margins, that you're talking about that City are setting, and the game has moved on from whereas, I look back and you watch the Premier League years on Sky, and Arsenal win the league with 78 points. That doesn't get you Champions League qualification these days. The levels are incredible.
And if we're talking about points, Craig, I'm doing this for Hula's benefit. You did lose 4 points to Fulham Football Club last season, mate, didn't you? That's the thing. I couldn't
believe it. The game before Christmas, where it was an odd game. We started really poorly, and then Saka scored, and it was like, we might do all right here, and then we get turned over, and it was, it's those moments where we went through that horrible run at Christmas. You look back on it and you think, when we lost to West Ham, when we Villa, and a good side Villa, but still, those were the moments.
Very good football club. We got them Saturday. Saturday, so I'm
going to be a tough game.
I wanted to get these two out of the way. So everyone's up. Fulham did beat. We won at Man City, but we lost 3-2 apparently. But we still lost. We didn't score. And there were great moments to look back on. Our tactics were good, but I think we'll really find out where we are against Villa at home, because we're at home. We're 8th. We held on to the 87th minute at Old Trafford. Unlucky there, but we lost 1-0. We then should have beat West Ham, but there was 10 minutes stoppage time and they equalised them. We're kind of where we are now. And I mean that I said to you before we started recording, every week we're 8th looking down. I'm not unhappy about that, because I've been the yo-yo. So my arrival in the Premier League under the years of Tigana and Chris Coleman, we did 13 years staple in the Premier League. Then we've yo-yoed, and I think it's great when you get promoted from the Championship. I don't know why you're nodding. You don't know. You're an Arsenal fan. You don't be down it. But it's great when you come up. But you kind of the Premier League. You don't want to get relegated from it. But when you're in the Championship, unless you're winning it, you don't want to be there. So I think we'll learn a little bit about our club there. But we can't not talk about the yellow cards, mate. Can we? We can't not talk about the Reds, because Dave Blitz, a sponsor from ETK. And without Dave and without ETK, we don't have a podcast. So Charlie, I've got to say this because he wants me to say it. It's he gave Charlie 2 yellow cards the other day just for the fun of it. It's a bit of it's becoming a habit, isn't it?
It's infuriating because it's the rules don't change, and it's that's the thing. You look at the Declan Rice red card. That is a yellow card. It's a second yellow. He nudges the ball away, but it's like, guys, the rules, and we had this at the start of last season. Tommy Asu got sent off against Palace early doors, where he took about 20 minutes over a throw-in and got the first yellow. It's like, guys, stop messing around and get on. And that's probably what cost us. Look, I think as an ex-defender, and I never played to a high level, but as an ex-defender and watching, the game against City, that's like a dream. That's like my dream game. That backs against the walls, defend. But actually, the time wasting cost us, because that was a lot of time put on that cost us. But again, Trossard walloping that ball. He knows better. The silly yellow cards. It's what every time we get a yellow card, I cringe because I think, are we going to cost ourselves here? Are we going to cost ourselves?
And then you get because Arteta's like Marmite, isn't he? You've got some people that love him. Normally red and white shirts, love him. and you've got the others that are like, he's giving it a bit large. What's he done? Well, he's been quite a good player, but what's he? Where's that balance? Do you want Mr. Charisma Ange, who's winning nothing? And sorry, Tottenham fans, but he's not delivering. Or you've got Arteta, who's pushed you back in top 2. He's pushed you, so you're going to be disappointed if you're not top 2 and you want to get top 1, but you're there. I'm going to ask this, Craig, because I don't understand. How's the Champions League going at the moment? Because it's very confusing for me.
It's one of those, you look at it now, and actually the truth is you could probably play 3 games with your reserve squad, because now it's 8 games, not home and away. It's a bit of a blend of both. And as long as if you finish in the top 8, great, you're through. But if not, in the next 16, so you're in the top 24, you go into a playoff. So you're essentially in what the old round of 16 was. Yeah. It's almost harder to sort of stay in it than it is get knocked out of it appears these days.
My eldest son's tried to explain it to me. I'm like, well, we're not in it, so I'm not going to worry too much about it for now. Just tell me who's playing and I might watch it. But for you, it's got to be Premier League. You've got to want that title now, haven't you, really? Because it does, from the outside, the squad looks ready, the players look ready. There's been arguments of you've got a natural goal scorer. That's always the thing that's perhaps not quite there.
But I think when you look at things like that, you look at what City done when they bought Haaland, one of the best goal scorers the Premier League's ever seen, bar Shearer and Henry, bar those players, Louis Saha for your benefit. I don't want to leave you out there, Pete. But that's it. But it's you actually look at what happened when City bought Haaland. All they did was transfer the goals from the team to Haaland. They're not scoring bucket loads more goals. They're scoring a few more, but actually there's just more directed through Haaland now. We're getting the goals, and there are those games. It's easy to say when we draw a 0-0 and you go, blooming hell, I wish we had a striker. But we actually scored, I think, we're the highest scorer in the Premier League last year. We were the best defence in the Premier League last year. Our problem is just that it's when we get into a bad rut, those 3 bad results last year, and the last couple, it has been skin in the teeth, particularly a couple of weeks ago where we got the last minute winner. It's when Trossard scored. They're the games that almost cost us, against Leicester.
I thought you might have done it in Europe last year as well, so you had it all going on, didn't you? And you bumped into a very good team, that's the thing there. But if I remember I go back to the season before, and we were there, Arsenal were just too good. They were just bigger than Fulham, stronger than Fulham, better than Fulham. I think you were 3 or 4 up at half time and you'd had 2 goals disallowed. But we couldn't get near you. It wasn't like they completely dominated the game from start to finish. Last season, not so much, but I think we're more equipped now than what we were. But it's always interesting for me because when I've supported Fulham from the lower leagues all the way up, so sometimes just to be a bit surreal and go, hold on, like we're playing these teams is really, really good. And I think there's always an affection for Fulham. Unless you support Brentford, QPR, I won't say Chelsea. I won't say Chelsea that much because it's only the younger fans, because we didn't play each other in my lifetime, mate. So we didn't. Like, we're in the 4th, they're in the 1st, we didn't play each other. But if I look at it now, everyone's got a soft spot for Fulham, even more so from the red half of North London. They're all looking out for Fulham's results, aren't they?
Indeed, we're looking for. Every time, I must admit, I sat home the other week when Smith Rowe put one in, and I thought, "Good old boy." I'm actually hoping we've got a cheeky buyback clause in there somewhere that nobody's mentioned. So we'd love to have him back anytime. But it's great to see him. Great to see him in there and play, and playing to the strengths as well. It's what infuriates me about football these days. It's like when you see, for some reason, I don't know what it is, that Southampton want to play out from the back, and it was the same when Emery came to Arsenal. He wanted Leno to play passing football from the back. You'll know better than me. That isn't really Leno's game. He's not the best with his feet. He's okay, but he's not incredible with his feet. So just don't play lots of balls into his feet all game. You can do it some of the time, but you can't risk it time after time. And we saw so many goals conceded when Emery was there because of that. It's that new obsession in football, and the truth is not every team can do it.
He's been magnificent, Leno.
Incredible.
And now we've got like Shirley, or Calvin Bassey, we call him Shirley, but Bassey's really kind of got himself there. Big arm, good left foot, really probably could be too good for us, but he's really got it. And then we've got Anderson back, so you got a right footer who can give it, and he's horrible. He looks really nice and he smiles a lot, but he's one of them. He's always rucking with people, and he knows what he's doing, but he can hit the out ball. And when you've got like Adama Traore on that side and Iwobi on that side, who was just going to run and run and run. You've got that out ball, so I think we've evolved our tactics to make us more competitive. But the mini Arsenal team of Leno and Iwobi and Smith Rowe and now Reece Nelson coming off the bench, they are quite exciting, because one thing you see about them, they are proper footballers.
Absolutely,
they're all coached. They're coached properly. The way Leno organises his team, Iwobi. Now I know Iwobi got a stick at Everton and whatever, but he does all the right things. He just doesn't always execute them. And that's probably why he's at Fulham. Let's be honest, if Adama Traore could finish, he wouldn't be playing for Fulham, would he?
He'd still be at Barca.
He's still at Barca, running through and putting it top bins. But he's at Fulham, he's running through, breaking their hearts when he keeps missing. So it is, but it's lovely to see. And as I said to you, Smith Rowe is assisting a goal almost every game. Yeah. He's really good. So I think the time for Fulham will be a few injuries, because I don't think our bench. And again, it'll be the same thing. Mitro moved on. João Paulinho moved on. I think Anthony Robinson will probably move on. Yeah. And then, all right, we've got Cesc can come back in. But it just depends on how we adapt there. And obviously, you haven't brought it up, but we did lose the longest penalty shootout in the history of ever the other day, didn't we?
I totally forgot about that, in all fairness. I totally forgot you had that absolute monster.
16-15, I think we lost in the shootout. They run out. They nearly got to the keeper's taking two.
Doesn't it show you, though, the improvement in like penalty taking? It's no longer just this random. It's like everything we do. It's like in business, it's an analytical process that's been practiced time and time again, that has been executed, and that's what you don't see a sort of 3-0 penalty shootout these days. I
think the thing with it was as well is like our keeper probably didn't. I'd say their keeper was more theatrical. He was more putting everyone under pressure. He was really up for it, home crowd. Our keeper was not that close to any of them. The one he stopped kind of was at him. He still didn't stop it, but it wasn't there. And then you just kind of like going, oh, don't let Ryan Sessegnon miss, please. And he scored these two. And then you're like, and the goal miss for us. He's like a Belgian international. He plays all the time with Belgium. He's hit the bar, sort of like gone over the bar. And we've lost. But I actually think Silva opened up. We made 11. Well, I think there was only 2 players in the squad that featured at the weekend. Now, that's a bit disrespectful, because we went 1 down and we got the goal back, but we didn't have enough, because you don't go extra time no more. So we didn't have the time. I think we might have been a bit disrespectful there. So I don't know, mate. But look, I can laugh at Fulham and I can support Fulham. I don't get too upset when we lose. I don't get that happy when we win. They just kind of sit there. They're my team, and they're my team because that's all I've ever known. For your team, Craig, what do you think is going to happen this season?
Oh, I think we can dream of the Premier League. I'm not one of those where I'm not it's our year. But I think, look, if we can put ourselves up there with a chance, all we want to be is if we're there on the last day, and what it'd be great to be is last day and it's in our hands, the ability to know that on the last day, if we win, it's ours. Yeah. But it's when it's like last year, I went down for the last day. I took my Mrs. Lucy down with me, and she had to go through the pain in the local boozer with all the other Arsenal fans. She couldn't understand why we were celebrating wildly when West Ham was scoring and all of that. But that's football, right? But if we can take it to the last day and have it in our hands, I would be absolutely blooming delighted. That would be a great year for us.
So that's what we're going to be thinking of. Favourite all-time Arsenal player?
Tony Adams, without a second thought. Mr. Arsenal. So as a defender growing up, and he was my era, I just loved how he was everywhere. The lanky legs, the ability to tackle. He was just, and he was all heart and soul. He never left. And you never looked at Tony Adams play a game and think, that's 50% in him. Even when he was reaching his later years and he extended his career, it was all or nothing. And I loved that.
Yeah. But captain, the captain leader, I don't know it's John Terry, but captain leader legend Adams, and battling back for adversity as well. Euro '96, I went to every game in that tournament. I was 21 years of age, and I just remember moments with Adams. I remember moments with Pearce and Shearer and that there. So great player. And actually, I was in my juice and sales director days through Paul Edwards and his relationships there. I was able to do some work with Sporting Chance and understand kind of what the charity does. And I was in a couple of events, and Tony was there, his sister was there. He won't remember me being there, but he was polite, courteous, and when he spoke about someone who had it all, lost it all, got it back, and still battles his demons probably every single day. And I thought that was very, very inspiring, mate. And that almost seamlessly, Mr. Fraser, takes us from the builder's merchant career through the world of football, from North London and West London, and we'll now talk about our next generation. So I love this industry. You're a huge part of the industry. What do you think we need to be doing as a sector to keep that passion coming in, the next generation? What's missing? What do we need to do?
Yeah, it's difficult. I think you made the point earlier about the automation. When I left school, and it wasn't that long ago, it feels a lot more recent than it actually is, but it wasn't that long ago. But when you left school, if you hadn't done too well, you had a couple of choices: go and work in a factory or go and work in a builder's merchant. Maybe simplified it a bit, but they were your choices. And nowadays you can go and get quite a menial role, tapping stuff into a computer for a fairly decent salary, because minimum wage is quite high these days. And you're in a warm office in the winter, you're in a cool office in the summer, you get an hour's lunch break, you work 9 to 5. Builders Merchants is unsocial hours. We open 7 till 5. We don't open at the weekend because we want our guys to spend time with their family. That's really important to us. But it's long hours. But actually, the thing we should promote more is that I was a 19-year-old kid, walked in that Plumbers Merchants. I had no idea that one day, number one, I'd own my own business. But number two, that actually I would get to go to Turkey to the BMF conference. I would get to go to Sorrento to the NMBS conference. I'd get to go, suppliers would take us to Poland to go and visit their factory. And these are all things that you're not told when you join. When you join as a van driver, you're the van driver. Like, I'm going to go and drop some stuff in. If you have a good time, you have a good time. But actually, if you work hard, and it is hard work, it is in merchanting, it's not going to get gifted to you. There's no freebies. But I've always worked incredibly long hours in this industry and given everything heart and soul to it. And if you do the same, my story, and that's what I love about this industry, my story isn't unique. Shankar Patel started in a hardware store in London, and he's built Lords. Mark Mulvey, my old boss and the old owner of Heavy with Neil Hemmington, he was nearly sacked. The great story he told was he got a letter of warning when he was doing his apprenticeship at Graham's Builders Merchants, went on to own Heavies and sell that, and I speak to him regularly, a fantastic life. The guys at LMR in Northamptonshire doing the same. These Kingsley, who you've had on the show previously at StockX, the same again, come from adversity. These stories are not unique. You could be listening to this today or in the future as a warehouse man or a van driver. In 20 years, you could own the business. And you show me another industry that can deliver that, not as a one-off, but time and time and time again.
Yeah, love the passion, mate. I mean, that's the thing. It's bottling that up and celebrating it. And I deal with lots of different businesses and lots of different hiring managers and owners and directors. And the one thing I always say to them is like, okay, I understand your company's brilliant. That's brilliant. I said, but what I want to know is what's in it for me. So if I decide to commit my life to you, so I'm going to spend more time with you than anyone else in my life. If I'm going to give you that, what's in it for me? And it might be that I want a shorter commute. It might be that I want a long career. It might be that I want to earn loads of money right now. There's all different reasons in it, but actually being able to qualify what's in it for you as a job seeker, as a candidate, someone who wants to work for you, that's an art which really does change everything. And that's the message I would love to see hitting the school playground. right? Hitting the universities, hitting military, right? Hit the service leavers, all right? Hit my son, who's now with a 2-para, serving with a parachute regiment, right? He's just been deployed in America for 8 weeks. He's only just come home. He's been doing stuff out there that you just go, wow. Now, let's get people like him into our industries. Not just his regiment, let's get them in, because actually there's such a pathway there where we could get some of the kids out of the estates, out off the thing, and we can really be playing with them, working with them. And I think apprenticeships can be a buzzword, and apprenticeships shouldn't be a buzzword. It should be something we actually dive down and make happen and really celebrate that pathway. So, Craig, it's been brilliant to get you on the show, talking about your journey. From a kind of summing up perspective, anything else you want to talk about to give advice to others? Because I think that's something which I know you wanted to come on here and say, it will be okay. And you had a few things you wanted to finish with, didn't you?
Yeah, and I think there's a couple of core messages there. I think, look, number one, I know it's always the same in our industry. It's not when times get tough that the bad things happen. It's when we're coming out of that. So we're seeing a number of people being made redundant, and it is a terrible time of year. And a year ago, that was me. So number one, the first thing I want to say to everyone is, look, it's going to be all right. And there are people out there that are here to talk to, myself, and probably more than anything, I want to advocate for Peter more than this. So a year ago, when I did come out of my employment it was early December, as you'll expect, having done a senior role previously, I dealt with a number of recruiters who were speaking to me to say, can we advertise jobs for you? So now the shoe was on the other foot. I was going to them saying, look, I'm going to need some assistance. Now, in a senior role, these are not to a penny. So I was clear with them all, and I said, look, just stay in touch. It's a tough time of year. It's Christmas. It's New Year. Just pick up the phone and just check in. Keep me company. And fair play to Peter here. He was the one that did it and just checked in and said, look, I don't have anything. Things are going to be all right. Keep the CV up to date. But how are you? How are things? It's going to be all right. So if you're out there and you're struggling, or if you are in a bad place, Pete talked about earlier, his advocacy for mental health and mental well-being, he stands by that. So do pick up the phone, and he will find that time for you.
Thanks, mate. Craig, you did have to say that, to be honest. It's something which I value, what I give back to the industry. I'm always realistic about what you can and what you can't commit to, but being there for someone. And I'm not in saying that I offer advice which is going to transform anyone's life. It's going to give you basic employability tips. It will give you some support. I'll probably make you laugh. I'll probably make you smile, but I'll actually try and give you. I always want to give someone away something to think about themselves. Because if you're relying on, it worries me, this situation is bad, I've got to, if you take that attitude into everything you do, you're not going to be the best version of you. So getting a strategy in place where and this can go out to anyone who's facing redundancy in a moment, the thing that will control you is your own mind and mindset, right? That's what you have to fix. So it's like the aircraft mentality. We spoke about budget airlines. Don't matter if you're on a first class or a budget, you've got to put the oxygen mask on you first, and then you help others. So that's the starting point, is making sure that you're in a good place. It might be you do nothing for a couple of weeks because you want to get your anger out. You go and hit the gym, you go running. That's what I do. When I get stressed, I go running, and now it's become a habit, and a habit's become something that I get quite compulsive about, and it makes me feel really good. But people say, how can you find the time to run? I'm like, it's only half hour. Like, everyone's got half hour. You spend half hour on your phone. It's easy. You spend half hour on the football results. I just go for a run, and actually prioritising mindset and wellness helps you, because it is really hard getting a new job. It's a real tough gig, but then you need a couple of modern tools. The modern tool number one is having a CV you're proud of, and we can argue for weeks about what it looks like, how it's presented, what words it's got in. That's fine, we can fix that, but I want you, Craig Fraser, to be proud of that if you're giving it to me, because that's a starting point. And then, whether we like it or not, we have to have our social media in play, because everyone's going to be on there checking you out and looking on there. And it can be small pieces of content, large pieces of content, whatever you want to share. But actually getting that right, that improves your all-round job seeking. And I say the last thing I say to everyone is smile, and don't apply for 10 jobs, apply for one. And then give it everything you can, because you want that job and you want the best version of you. But Craig, honestly, I promised we'd wrap up in just under 50 minutes. We're at 55 minutes, so we're in there extra time and stoppage time. That was you talking about mini Arsenal. You talking about Fulham. Somehow I spoke about our penalty shootout, which I'm not really I don't want to talk about it really, but I thought if we keep talking about Arsenal's yellow cards and send us off, so I might as well give it a bit. I think Fulham will be okay this season. I think in Marco Silva, we're in safe hands. I worry about what would happen if Marco goes, but ultimately the club will carry on, and I think that's all we can wish for. But the future of the industry, with more people like you in it, Craig Fraser, it's going to be a fantastic industry. So thank you for joining me on the show. I want to again say thank you to our season sponsors, Season 8 From the Ground Up, sponsored by E.T. Clay and David Blitz. Without them, we don't have a show. So if you want to find anything else out about Craig, and I'm going to say it once more, for Gwen and Erin Timber and Building Supplies, or Forge Timber and Building Supplies, it's a fantastic story. And we'll finish by just saying that is a story where someone's taken a difficult situation and turned it into something positive. Craig, promise me this. I got Kingsley back on to do what Kingsley did next. He did a second leg. We'll go again in maybe 12 months' time or something like that, mate, eh?
That'd be fantastic, with the Premier League behind us as well as an Arsenal fan, right?
If you win the Premier League, Hula and me will come up and we'll record it in your site, and we'll do a live gig up there.
That'd be fantastic.
Nice one, mate. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week on Foy and Jones Show Season 8 From the Ground Up.